What's going on, people? Urston here. Welcome back to the channel. Look, in my last video, I explained that Gabriels will be out for the rest of the season with a hamstring injury. He requires surgery in the next coming days. He will be missing the big games against Real Madrid. But there's a massive article that I wanted to read, that I wanted to react to, that I wanted to show you guys, made by the Telegraph. I'm going to read it. The reasons why Arsenal are suffering so many hamstring injuries. Gabriel Magalhaes has become the fourth key player at the North London club to be struck down with a league-wide problem this season. This article was written by Sam Dean, posted on the Telegraph. We're going to react to it today. Hit the like button and subscribe. Hopefully I won't go into it in too long for everyone. Yeah, if you're enjoying the content I'm making, please hit the subscribe button. Follow for more content. It's absolutely sad. He got injured in a win against Fulham. Heartbreak. For Arsenal, it was a grueling yet sadly familiar sight. A key player in obvious pain. His hand clutching the back of his leg. The hamstring muscles of the Arsenal first team have presented problem after problem for Mikel Arteta this season. And on Tuesday night, there was another one. Gabriel Magalhaes limped off the pitch after 16 minutes against Fulham. It is too early to know the severity of Gabriel's issue, but it certainly looked to be a bad one. The Brazilian is not the type to go down easily, and he hobbled off the field with a look of real anguish on his face. Obviously, it got confirmed that he is ruled out with the injury. This hasn't been updated since then, but it's more of an analysis as to why have we got so many injuries. Is this an Arsenal problem or is it a league problem? Gabriel is the fourth key player to suffer a hamstring injury at Arsenal this season. Bukayo Saka missed 101 days with a hamstring tear he suffered in December, while Kai Havertz suffered a season-ending hamstring injury in February. Gabriel Martinelli was out for more than a month with a hamstring injury of his own. He also sustained it in February. So those four players are important first-team players of Arsenal. Saka and Gabriel being our best player, our most consistent player in the last 4 years. What's going on? Well, the first thing to make clear is that Arsenal are far from alone in suffering from the curse of the hamstring. It is not an Arsenal-specific problem, but a football-wide issue that is causing significant concern in medical departments across the Premier League and beyond. All these clubs, the greatest worry isn't the actual number of hamstring injuries, but the severity of them. Elite footballers are not necessarily suffering more hamstring injuries, but the hamstring injuries they are suffering are generally more serious than ever before. Data from Premier Injuries shows that the Premier League this season there has been 118 hamstring related injuries that represent more than a quarter of all injuries in the division. Of those 118 injuries, 71 of them, which is 60%, have been severe enough to keep the player out of option. Out of those 118 injuries, 71 of them have been severe enough to keep the player out of action for a month or more. This is wild. Since the start of the 2019-20 season and to the end of the 22-23 campaign, by contrast, only 40% of hamstring injuries kept the player out for such a long period of time. There are examples of across the division this season. Chelsea's Nicholas Jackson and Nolly Madueke have been out since February with hamstring issues. Tottenham Hotspur's Mickey Van der Ven, Wilson Odobert, Ben Davies, Timo Werner, Richarlison, and Destiny Udogie have all had hamstring problems. So for every Arsenal fan saying, "Oh, this is a squad issue, squad planning issue, Arteta out," it's not. It's a Premier League issue. You can only register 26 players for the season as well. It's not easy. Or actually 30 for the Premier League. Other examples include United's Mason Mount, Dominic Calvert-Lewin, Igor Julio, the centre-back from Brighton, Liverpool's Joe Gomez, and Fulham's Reece Nelson, another Arsenal player hampered by injury. Within the industry, there's no single accepted reason for this alarming shift. If the medical staff knew the exact cause, it would be easier to find a solution. Well, there is a solution. Players are playing too many games. It's as simple as that. There are, however, some obvious factors that are contributing to the Grizzlies situation. The relentless schedule. The first of those is the schedule. The ever increasing number of matches is a source of enormous concern within dressing rooms. Many players, coaches, and medical experts fear that players are effectively paying the price for a cumulative load that has been placed on their bodies over recent seasons. At Arsenal, for example, Arteta has said it's sadly inevitable that the players who have played the most football will suffer from injuries. Saka had played almost 150 matches since the summer of 2022 before his hamstring tear in December. Havertz has got 160 appearances since the summer of 2022 before his injury in February, while Gabriel has played more than 150 in that same time. Crazy. Speaking of February, Arteta has said, obviously some of them we know of based on loads of minutes. It is inevitable. We have players that have been injured that have played 130 games over the last 2 seasons. So at the end, it's an accident waiting to happen if you continue to load and load and load. Rest them. Give them a week break. Even if it's playing against Ipswich Town, for example, or you got a big game against West Ham, just rest the player. Hire a replacement. That's what a lot of football fans will be saying. The major problem with this relentless schedule is in which big clubs routinely play at weekends and then again in midweek, is that players do not have time to train and strengthen their muscles in the gym. In the busiest periods of the season, footballers are either playing matches or recovering from matches. There is no in between. Arteta said that Arsenal have trained less than ever this season. There is no time for training, he said earlier in the campaign. The biggest problem is that you don't train the muscle, so the muscle is undertrained and then you expose the muscle and the tendon to no exposure that they cannot absorb because the tendon needs 72 hours to recover. I think that's why I've had many injuries this season because I don't actually train my legs. I just go ham on running. That's just something that I've had to deal with. I like to go for a run like twice, 3 times a week, but I don't necessarily do leg day. I've realised why I've got so many injuries. When you have to load that muscle for 2, 3, 6, 8 weeks and you have not trained it, the risk of injury is much bigger because the muscle of the tendon is not recovered and it's not prepared to absorb the load and the stress you're going to put under it again every 3 days. Ever increasing speed of game. A secondary issue is that the speed of the game is increasing with each season. In the Prem, the majority of teams now look to employ a high-intensity, high-pressing tactical system. For attackers, this involves repeated accelerations and decelerations out of possession, rather than sitting deeper in a more defensive shape. For defenders, it means leaving large spaces behind the defence and sprinting back when the ball goes over their heads. Fair? These sprints will place a large demand in the hamstring. Indeed, it was doing a full speed spin back towards his own goal against Fulham that Gabriels suffered his injury on Tuesday night. Yeah. There's more long haul travel. The issue of long distance travel cannot be ignored. Either FIFPro, the Global Football Union, says that international travel and acclimatization to different time zones makes recovery more challenging and increases the risk of injury. Is it a coincidence, therefore, that Gabriel suffered an injury in his first match for Arsenal since representing Brazil in last month's international break? The centre-back played against Colombia on March the 21st, but was suspended for the second match against Argentina. Arsenal players were on an extended break. He remained in the country to support his full favourite club, Corinthians. In the stands, they won their Sao Paulo State Championship last Thursday. What? So they're saying that if Gabriel returned to England on time, he wouldn't have faced an injury. He just had a week off, man, and a little break to watch his beloved team play. He essentially had a break from football. It's no different to going to Dubai for a week when Kai Havertz had his massive injury. That was suffered in Dubai right after a game against Newcastle. What is the solution? Well, it actually just kind of makes that point. What is the solution? One argument is that managers should rotate their squads more often. Saka, Havertz, and Gabriel, after all, have played so many matches because Arteta has picked them in so many matches. It is, though, a hard argument for the medical department to make to a manager whose job depends on results. It can also be a hard argument to make those players, most of whom will want to play as often as possible. Exactly. Like, every player wants to play. Every player wants to build their fitness. Every player wants to go on the run. Every player wants to play the biggest of games. You're going to tell somebody not to play against Fulham, they're going to be annoyed, even though they have a big game against Real Madrid in the coming days. It's going to be really hard. Most coaches and players will agree that the schedule needs addressing. There have been complaints for many seasons now with Man City midfielder Rodri recently warning of a potential strike. But England captain Harry Kane summarised it neatly when he said that players are not listened to over scheduling concerns. Rodri then got a massive season-ending injury right after he made that statement, by the way. Bigger squads could help. Some would have argued that the investment required for that would not be feasible under current financial restrictions. And how does this tally? And how does all? Sorry, bigger squads could help, but some clubs would argue that the investment required for that would not be feasible under current financial restrictions. And how does all this tally with the desire of broadcasters, organisations, leagues, and clubs to maintain, if not improve, the quality and excitement of the product? At present, there appears to be little sign of significant change in the near future. If anything, the potential factors behind the hamstring curse are being exaggerated rather than addressed. The players will simply continue to pay the price, with Gabriel being the latest of many. It's sad because I mean he said a whole lot of nothing. To be honest, this article, other than the load of fixture congestion and the relentless travelling, is that why players get so many injuries, and then they make a fair point in the end. But look, we need big. Maybe you need bigger squads. You need bigger quality of player. You can't just have four quality defenders. You need eight that are ready to play, that are ready to come in. Gabriel Magalhaes only missed what 2-3 games from injury before this injury over the past 2 seasons, right? He even came off against Liverpool and he with a strain on his knee. It wasn't that big of an injury. He was only out for a couple of weeks. But when you play week in, week out, 3 days a week, it's never easy. And a lot of Arsenal players, fans alike us, will be annoyed because this has hurt their season. We've missed Saka and we've gone on a run of games where we've not won again. We've had Odegaard out and we were struggling to create chances to dictate the game. We had Kai Havertz out where Mourinho's come in. Havertz was that big guy that won the duels, and it's not been easy to replicate. I think for me, we do need less games in football. Maybe once a week, more often. Maybe once every 4 days. That could work. Instead of Wednesday, Saturday, Tuesday, Friday. Etc. Etc. So it's heartbreaking that we've had to deal with all these injuries. Everybody's had a lot of injuries, including Spurs that have had hamstring tears. But what can we do? Better training, better science. These players have a healthy diet, better recovery times. It is the recovery times of the recovery stuff that the medical stuff are doing for these players helping it or putting more pain. Let me know what you think in the comments, guys. But Gabriel Magalhaes out for the season, of course. But these players will continue to get injuries unless something happens. Let me know what you think in the comments, guys. In a bit, people. In a bit.